The National Science Institute, how can we help you?
Yeah, hi. My daughter was in recently interviewing for a position, and she got sent home with some information that we as parents had to read over, and I was reading over some of that, and I had some questions on that, the material and the waiver. I probably want to talk to, I guess, whoever would be the person running the day-to-day or, I guess,
I can
managing
help you with that.
My name is, your name?
My name is Liz.
Hi, Liz. Are you one of the managers there, or?
Yes, I am.
Okay. My daughter was in, and when she brought this home, and I probably should preface this saying I'm an attorney. I don't practice, but I'm trained in the law, and I read over this. I think it'd be considered a disclaimer or maybe a waiver of liability, and at first, I thought there was a few lines that were kind of comical, but then I realized there's a lot of information there that brought, I guess, some concern as to the level of seriousness you guys have with regard to safety and stuff. I don't know if you've read this, Liz.
I have.
You have. This is a 16-year-old girl, and she's getting ready to go work in an environment which has a lot of equipment in it. These are labs. These are places where safety should be paramount and foremost in everyone's minds. I also work for a company that is a manufacturer, and we have technical labs all over the world. And I guess my concern is I'd like to talk to someone about that waiver.
I've already told you that I can talk to you about it, so if you would like to ask a question, I'd be happy to help you.
I don't really think that the comical aspect of that is appropriate. I don't know who drafted it, or if you had an attorney review it, or it speaks maybe not well of the seriousness and especially of safety and of, I think, the mission that you guys, I was just on your website trying to find your mission and make sure it's aligned with it, but it really brings up some kind of concerns. The joking about dismemberment and all this stuff, I understand it's good to be lighthearted about things, but I don't know if it sends the right message. And I also think maybe, I don't know who else has read this. I've been part of volunteer associations and organizations. The Boy Scouts have won, the YMCA, and some others. And again, as a board member of these, if I had one of my agencies providing this out, even in the nonprofit volunteer world, it really raises some concerns. So that's my point. And the second item is, I don't know who manages the business there, manages it, but if these are things that are given out to young volunteers as they're getting ready to come work there, I've got some concerns with having my daughter spend time there, as well as the fact she walked through there and she gave me some, feedback. She was excited about the opportunity, but said, Dad, I've been in your labs and I've been in your testing facilities, and it was kind of scary. It looked like Grandpa's barn. Well, Grandpa's barn's not the safest place in the world, I can tell you. That's also a concern, and maybe I should come down there personally and take a look. But it starts to add some things up in my mind that maybe safety isn't paramount, and it sends the wrong message to these kids.
Okay, I'm not sure what specifically makes you think that we don't take safety seriously, but you are casting a fairly large judgment without having been to our facility.
Love to come. Would love the invite, Liz. But when you read through that, if you take and you objectively read through that disclaimer that you call it, in the lightheartedness with which you approach things like injuries, severed heads and all these, I don't have it in front of me, but it really doesn't send the right message. I don't know if you have children, and if you have children that are working around this type of equipment, but on all levels, not only as an executive in a manufacturing company, as a trained attorney, and also as someone who's on boards of many nonprofits, it really starts to raise a lot of questions and concerns as to the seriousness with which you're taking your mission and safety as part of that mission.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. We're not changing the waiver at this time, so that's just not something that we are. So then,
who would I send the next correspondence to? Since A, you're not changing the waiver, and you've made that point known. Who is in charge for your organization? I mean, I can look through the board, and I know a few of these members. Who, I guess, is the next? Because my next level is, if you're not willing to consider change, you're not willing to have a discourse on it, then are you putting these kids at risk by not having a culture of safety in place? And if you are putting these kids at risk by not having the right culture, then people like, your board members should be made aware of this. I as a parent.
I'm trying to be really patient with you, sir, but you're telling me that we don't have a culture of safety when you haven't actually been here, and you're placing a lot of judgment.
Have you read the waiver, Liz?
I have.
Have you read that?
Read the waiver. I have read it.
Then
we do.
Then shame on you for putting that out to people.
Okay. In that case, sir, I think that it is not a good idea for your daughter to volunteer with us.
I think the best thing for me is to write to Mr. Boden, Mr. Minkus, and Mr. Nichols and these other individuals, as well as you probably should consider the fact that the next call I'm going to make is to ensure I call the city and make sure that they've been in there and to look at this place. Because if your waiver is so cavalier, if your waiver is so cavalier about the concept of safety, then I'm really concerned that you have the right oversight. Because that's not the kind of thing you should be putting out if you're running any kind of an organization. To make jokes in a liability form like that it gets close to the point of negligent, if not grossly negligent. But Liz, I didn't get your last name. I don't think you gave it. My name's Michael Jastover, and I'll be writing correspondence because I don't think you're taking this seriously enough. And so my next correspondence will cite the conversation and go to the members of your board because I think this is serious. Now, if you're serious about having me in there for a visit and you would like me to give my impression as a seasoned professional that deals with safety all day long, I would suggest that. And you probably should have at least your director or your chairperson or someone available to do that. I'm willing to take time out of my busy schedule to do that because I care about kids and I care about making sure people don't get injured. And if you're willing to accept that, then we can coordinate on that. Otherwise, the only thing I can do is start sending letters.
All you've done so far, sir, is threaten me and then tell me that I need to take you seriously.
No, I haven't. I've been very serious in telling you what the concern is.
You told me the concern, and then when I told you that we weren't changing the waiver, you threatened me. You told me that you're going to contact every member of the board in the city.
I am, because you're not taking it seriously. And if you're not taking it seriously, what other recourse do I have, Liz?
Well, you kept telling me not to talk to you. If you would like, I can let you talk to Mr. Boden right now.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
Okay, I'm going to put you on hold for 1 second.
Thank you.
Chris Boden, can I help you?
I just spoke with Liz, and she transferred me over. If you got a minute, maybe I should start at the beginning. Yep, that's my mother, and my daughter Margaret was just in there yesterday.
Okay.
And what started all this is Margaret came home after doing her interview, and she gave me the form, this, I would call it kind of a liability or a disclosure type form, and I read through that. And
it's our standard waiver.
And I took time, I read it twice, and the concern I have and the concern I made to Liz earlier is in reading that, I don't feel that maybe the right message is being transferred. I'm hoping to be objective in listening to this. In reading through that, there was a lot of jokes and other things about it, and it kind of, for me reading it, as well as my wife and even my daughter who's young, it kind of concerned me that in the jokingness of it, in the format that it was presented, it concerned me it didn't present the right kind of stance or maybe cultural perception, I guess, on my part on safety.
Okay.
I understand it's good to be lighthearted about things. I come from a place where I'm an attorney by training. I don't practice, but that's where I did my training, and now I work for a large manufacturing company, and safety is one of the areas that I have that's part of my job, as well as I came from the nonprofit world. Maybe my mom's told you about this stuff, but I've been on boards with the Y, the Boy Scouts, and others. And safety is the number one importance. When my daughter was reading that to me and telling me about her kind of visit there last night, I said, well, Margaret, I see your point about this form, but did you feel that there was other things around them that made you feel like it's a safe environment and they're doing? And she just said one comment. She said, Dad, it's not like your labs. It's more like Grandpa's garage, but
yes,
I'm sure they're safe. Yeah, and that's great. However, when I take that comment and I pair it with what I call kind of the joking, jokes about losing hands and severed limbs and things, it really starts me getting concerned about the culture that you're promoting as the first step coming in with this disclaimer on safety.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right, and I totally agree with you. Now you want to hear the other side to that?
Great, yeah.
Okay. We've been doing this 24 years. This is not by any means a kid-safe environment, nor will it ever be. It's not supposed to be. This isn't the Y or the Boy Scouts. We have a whole world that is entirely run through the predication of lawyers and insurance companies, and we have thrown that aside, and we spend a lot of money to do that. It's why we have 5 different insurance companies. In 24 years, we've only had 2 injuries that were serious enough that somebody had to go to an emergency room, and it was just needed a couple stitches both times. One was an employee, a full staff member, not a volunteer. Volunteers don't get to do dangerous stuff. The other one was a member who was an idiot, and you don't get to be an idiot with a table saw for very long. And both of those individuals are perfectly fine. They got a couple stitches and went on with their day. And the idea is that this building is a bastion of reality in the giant ocean of diarrhea that is the rest of the world that is run by lawyers and insurance companies. This is not a super safe, dumbed down place. This is a place where stupid hurts in a hurry, and actions have consequences, and people actually have to be responsible for their decisions, and that's the point. And if somebody comes in here and decides to be stupid with a power tool, we're not going to say, oh, you can't do that. You have to protect the wee precious children. We can't let people use power tools. No, we have hundreds of power tools here. We have a high voltage lab. We have the only high voltage lab in the world that is open to the public. There's only 21 high voltage research labs on the planet, and we're the only one you get into without having a PhD. And in that room, death is always watching. There aren't a lot of rules in the high voltage lab, but every single one of them is written in blood. And in this environment, if a person comes in here and does something stupid and drills a hole through their hand with a power drill, well, they're going to learn a lesson. And if they cut their hand off with a table saw, they're going to learn a very important lesson. But we're not going to dumb it down. We're not going to kid-safe it, because that's not how the real world works. And we have people in here on a daily basis from other labs and other research facilities. We have members with JPL and Lawrence Livermore and Berkeley and all kinds of fun places. And we fit in just in line with everybody else. The big difference here is you can actually do a lot of things that you can't do in other labs because of the crippling effects of over safety and dumbing it down and trying to make everything kid safe. Our standard membership is...
We'd have to disagree because...
and that's fine. That's okay.
You know, and you know, because you can never be safe enough, and you can never create, you know, and I think you should always strive to create a very serious attitude and atmosphere where, you know, you can get the same message across with I think, better tools. It's just, you know, it's just my personal... we're a global manufacturer. And maybe I look at things differently, but I think that
you absolutely do. And from your perspective, that's absolutely right. From your environment, for what you do for a living, that is absolutely the stance you should take. But for what we do here, and we tried that. Like, this isn't our first day. We tried that idea, and it was such an abysmal failure and so completely crippling to operations. I'm not saying you should throw safety to the wind and, you know, oh, screw it, let's just go. No, that's stupid. But we believe in logic and reason and common sense. We don't believe in having particular rules just for the sake of having particular rules. That's dumb. Everything we do here is founded on critical thinking. And everything is tested and everything is experimented, and if it works, do it, and if it doesn't, well, screw it, go on to the next thing. And that's how our rule book has been written. We didn't just sit down and arbitrarily generate a rule book copied and pasted from boilerplate from 15 different lawyers that got together in a focus group. That's how they do it in your world. In our world, we actually tested these things and said, okay, is this a good idea? And let's check that, and let's analyze the hell out of that, and let's do real science. And if it works and it applies to us, cool. And if it doesn't, that's fine. And at the end of the day, and this is where it gets really awesome because it's a radical concept that not a lot of places like us do, we put it all out there, we write it all out, and we take what we do very seriously without taking ourselves too seriously, because that's just dumb. And we leave it up to the parents to actually be parents. And you get to make your own decisions. And if you feel this is the right environment for your kid, then cool. And if you don't, that's okay too. But that's your choice. And it's not my position to dictate that or tell you what you should do or how you should raise your kid. And whatever works for you, do that. And if you don't feel it's a safe environment for your daughter to be in, that's okay. And I'm fine with that. And we scare a lot of people away with the waiver, but I've learned from a lot of experience that the people we tend to scare away with the waiver are the people I'd rather scare away with the waiver because they tend to become a pain in about a year from now. Now, your daughter signed up. Your daughter signed up to be a receptionist.
Yeah, I just the attitude is, I mean, if I can see you use humor and you do things with some training clips and stuff, but when it comes to waiver of liability and to express the seriousness of it, I think there's just, in my opinion, a different way of doing it, and we can.
I couldn't get people to read it when I wrote it the way you want. We had one that was all boilerplate legalese and all that. Nobody would take the time to read it. You give them a laugh and they'll actually read the whole thing.
I understand. We have very similar things. We have these training films that we do that do put a degree of humor in it, but I just,
it's entirely possible we made your training films.
I just don't, I agree. I just, there's no second chance when it comes to death and injury, and I don't do hospitals and I don't do funeral homes, and I understand what you're doing, and it isn't the right thing for a lot of people, and I just, maybe...
You're aware that your daughter signed up to be a receptionist, right?
I understand.
Yeah,
but if
they don't do a lot of welding.
Yeah, but if that's the culture that is being fostered, it sends me some warning signals, and we can agree to disagree. But
okay, and that's
I wish
fine.
you well with your venture, and maybe as just a comment, maybe objectively take a look and read through that. And
I have 50 times. We agonized, and we rewrite the thing about once a year. And by the way, that one was written by a handful of lawyers and a handful of engineers. So, like, I
wish you well, and I hope that you don't have any issues. And
no, it's totally cool. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Sir.
Yep, have a good day.